What's up, Wise Take? Welcome to the premiere episode of the NFL Wise Stream. I am your host, Patio Joe, and I am joined tonight with my fellow Guido. We're back for our fourth season. That's right, I'm back with Paulie D. As you can see, I'm sitting here in Sin City. Paulie is my background. I'm going to be having a different city I'm going to be in all year this year as we're doing these Wise streams. Probably at about, it's going to be almost midnight East Coast time and almost 9 o'clock West Coast time. So have a cup of coffee, sit down and talk about week number one NFL. Paulie D, how you doing?
Very, very good, Joe. Happy to be here. So glad football, things were looking shaky there for a minute, but we are here. Last night's game made me very, very happy, and I'm very optimistic about DFS in football with the landscape we have, with no one knowing pretty much anything at this point.
Yeah, before we get into, week one, it is kind of an unknown. Just to let you know, be sure to join the nation. We will be having our content schedule coming out. We got articles. I will have my cash game breakdown. Will be coming out tomorrow, sometime in the afternoon. And Paulie D will be having his DK core plays, more of a, or actually that's CK with his DK core plays, and Paulie D is going to come out with his GPP article going over which games you should be stacking and such. So, Paulie D, it's week one, and our macro view of this is, at least for me, guys, just to let you know, if you haven't joined us before, I'm going to be talking more FanDuel. It's centered, and Paulie D is more of a DK. I'm more cash game and smaller entry tournaments. I will throw in a little bit of where I'm going to go for GBPs and stuff. Paulie's more of the GBP guy, but we'll be answering questions at the end of the show and stuff like that. So, but to me, at least for FanDuel build and the macro build, at least I'm seeing that for cash games, it's going to be paying up at the running back position, finding the good value or mid-tier receivers, maybe paying up at one spot, and then maybe paying down at the tight end and having a defense already locked in that's a good value. How's it look for on the DK side, Paulie?
It's changing by the minute. We got some pretty big news not too long ago. What did we get? Tampa Bay receiver Evans most likely to miss. Kenny Galladay most likely to miss. I didn't see that coming at all. The status of Philly's running game is still in question. So things are changing, but I think certainly stacking and correlating is going to be key. We've got like 7 games with totals between 45 and 49. I think there's like 3 or 4 games that most of the industry is going to gravitate towards. And like, as I look at the slate, I feel like there's 7 to 9 games that could, really go off. And a lot of those are going to be very low owned. So, stacking games that are low owned, correlating, I don't know, like with teams not having a ton of practice time or any preseason games, we may see a lot more rust and only have like 1 or 2 games that really go off. So like whichever ones they are, I just want to have correlated stacked up together to be able to catch that if it plays out that way. And in terms of like paying up, paying down, the balance build is certainly easier, but we'll see by the time Sunday rolls along what else opens up and what the landscape looks like. I also do think that a Stars and Scrubs build jamming in some of the more reliable, higher scoring, more expensive studs into one lineup that the rest of the field won't really have that kind of build could also be the ticket on DraftKings. So we'll have to see by the time Sunday gets here. We'll certainly have it in the article. But as it stands now, DraftKings is certainly pushing you more towards a balanced build, which I don't really care. Stars and Scrubs balance. More so to me, what's important is the correlation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems to me, even though I think pricing on both sides is fairly loose this week, It seems to me there's a few more value options on DK this week, and we'll get into some of those when we get to position by position. There's some rookies in some great spots. Whether or not you want to pull the trigger in a cash game setting on that, that's a little bit, I think it's, site specific. We can't expect every rookie to go out there like CEH did and run for 140 yards and a touchdown and such, because they're not in those situations and stuff. But anyways, let's get into it. We're going to start off we're basically going to go position by position, guys. Then we'll go into a game that me and Paulie like, maybe some games we might fade. We'll be mixing in some other stuffs along the way. So, Paulie, talk to me about quarterbacks. Just go along. Just start with your high price options, and then we'll get into values.
All right. In terms of high priced, it's like Lamar Jackson is on an island by himself at 8-1 on DraftKings. Like him a ton. Think he's very, very safe for, say 30 or more points. But you're going to sacrifice to get him. Then you basically drop $1,000 and you got Russ, Drew Brees, Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, Josh Allen, Kyler Murray, all kind of clumped together. If I had to kind of choose which ones are my favorites, I like Russ a ton. I think Atlanta's, a pass funnel defense. He could be trailing. He's got, good weapons in the pass game, more of a question marks around their run game. I definitely like Russ. Like Drew Brees quite a bit in the dome at home against improved but still not daunting secondary from Tampa. And then Josh Allen at 6'5", I think is going to be like 2% owned against a fairly weak defense with some new toys on offense. That's an interesting spot that I'll definitely have some of Josh Allen. I'll cut it off at 6'5". We'll, talk about the rest in value, but Lamar, Russ, Breeze, and Josh Allen, 6'5" and up are the ones I have the most interest in.
Yeah, I think I'm going to be probably fading Lamar this week in cash just because he's 9-4, and if I'm going to pay up, I'll probably just go 10 and get CMC, because I feel like you could probably get in more of a back and forth type of game with Russ or some other one other quarterback, maybe Breeze and such. My thing with that game in Baltimore is I've been preaching all year that Stefanski's going to come in and try and install this run-first system, running game. We're going to stress the running game. And if that does work, I feel like it's going to be a game that might go under because they're going to be running the ball and the clock's going to be running and stuff like that. They're both running teams and such now at this point. So, it might not get that high-scoring game, and it might be a little bit of a closer affair. To the point where if I was betting at one point, I think Baltimore was an 8-point favorite, I probably would have taken, Cleveland and the points. Because last year they went into Baltimore and beat them in one of their losses. So Cleveland, they have a good team, and I just think that it's not going to be as high scoring as some people think. And if it is, then boy, Cleveland's offense is pretty damn good. But that's why I think you could fade him. Russell is probably my high-end quarterback. You're just going to go with. He's going across the country, facing Ryan and the Falcons. They have a good offense. Both defenses aren't that good. I think obviously the Seahawks defense I think is a little improved with Jamal Adams and such. But it's still going to take a week or a little bit to gel and such. So I feel like Russ is my high end option, and I really not going to really look at anybody else in the cash game. You could go with Matt Ryan, who's around the same price, but it's not just it. To me, Russ provides the rushing floor too. He can have a couple of that, and they've had the third most red zone attempts of any quarterback last year. So they throw the ball in the end zone. Obviously, they like it. They like to do that. So, the mid-tier options down to 7K, like the mid 7K. The one guy that the value that you didn't seem to you had a kind of a weird reaction to is Cam Newton. He's 7,300 on FanDuel. I think if he was playing Carolina, if he was still in Carolina playing the Raiders, he wouldn't be 7,300. He's in a new system. He's playing the Dolphins, and that's a decent improved defense, but still not not one of the best in the league. Cam with the rushing floor too. He could rush a little bit, maybe get a touchdown there. He likes to do that. The Patriots have some injuries for the running back front. I like Cam. I'm not saying he's going to have a huge game, but I feel like he can get me the 20 points that I need on FanDuel at 7,300. What do you think about Cam Newton, Paulie?
So it's not that I have anything negative to say about Cam. The way when you mentioned it to me, you said it's a core play, and I was like, what? Because that's surprising. I mean, I wasn't familiar with his FanDuel price on DraftKings. He's, towards the top at 6'1", not even really towards. He's in the middle, but it's not like he doesn't appear to me as a cash game play. We really have no clue what that system's going to look like. How much like he's gelled with some of the receivers. He doesn't have very good receivers. He's got complete rookies at tight end. It's a new offense. But the rushing floor, they are favored. I do expect him to do well. I will have him in some tournaments. But when you mentioned him as a core play, I was like, wow, because to me, he just doesn't stand out at all compared to others. But I'll have him in a few GPP stacks because, Bill Belichick likes to run things up. I wouldn't be shocked if they had like a 45-10 win and Cam Newton did go off. But in terms of like having a ton of him, I'm not in favor of that at all. But DK, he's just a decent play to me. But there's a lot of options that I think are viable. Again, I'm looking for tournament upside. So, this isn't like a cash game play. These are more tournament flyer kind of things in the value range for me. Where Dwayne Haskins is 5K. I like that game to shoot out. We have two pass funnel defenses. We know, we love the pass game against the Eagles defense. Their secondary is still kind of beat up as they were at the end of last year. And, this is going to be Haskins' second full year, like behind the helm. We could see some improvement at 5K paired with two of his cheap receivers or Chris Thompson and a receiver. You can really get some nice pieces into a lineup. And I've got some interest there. I've got some interest in Kirk Cousins. Green Bay had a pretty good defense last year, but this game is going to be played on the turf. Again, we may see, offenses gel more than defenses. Who knows? Kirk Cousins and Thielen, and then, either like an Irv Smith or like a BC at receiver to complete the stack for pretty cheap. I don't mind. Derek Carr, that Raiders Carolina game, big total. I think people are going to really gravitate towards Christian McCaffrey and then like one Raiders receiver maybe. And like I think this game has a ton of potential to be the highest scoring game on the slate. Just two terrible defenses and respectable offenses. And again, very, very cheap. Carr's 5'9". All of his receiving options are extremely cheap, and even Waller at tight end is not that bad. So, a way to kind of get different while owning McCaffrey is to run it back with like a 2 or 3 man Raiders stack and hope that game kind of goes off on its own and have that at lower ownership. What else do I like for cheap? And Baker Mayfield. I actually think that game could be higher scoring than people think. It's got a big total, 47.5. Everyone's expecting Baltimore to, kind of put up points and do their thing. What if this, improved Browns team with a ton of talent on offense hangs in there? Baltimore's D's another year older. They really didn't do a ton of improving. They do have some really great pieces in the secondary, but Baker and company. There's a ton of talent there. He's going to be like 2% owned and most likely trailing. I don't really love Odell, but I do like Jarvis Landry, who's got great history against Baltimore. And, think that could be a nice, like, contrarian play as well. But most of that is GPP, flyer, trying to get different. The guys towards the higher end, I think, are really where it's at for cash games and the bulk of your builds. They just don't seem, outside of Lamar Jackson, to be priced high enough for what they could put up. And a few of these games have to kind of go up. And the guys like Russ and Matty Ice, who've been doing it for years, are probably the more likely, along with Drew Brees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there is something to say week one, you might want to invest in systems that have been installed already,
For sure.
The two guys that I will point out, one is I think makes a great GPP play to just play him. You can almost play him naked if you wanted to. But you probably would pair him with somebody eventually. But I like Kyler Murray. Obviously, that's the one weather game I think you need to check out. They might even cancel that game because of poor air quality. So everybody's got to be checking that game. Right now, I'm not thinking it's going to play. They even said that if this was any other year, it would be an easy switch just to move the game to Phoenix and play the game in Phoenix. But because of COVID, they just can't do that quick switch because of travel restrictions and such. So it looks to me like it's either going to be delayed or they're going to try and maybe play it later on in the week. I don't know how that would affect this slate. They might just take the game off the slate then if that were to happen, if they play it like on a Tuesday or something, or Monday. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that.
Why?
Because
Why is that happening?
The air quality in Santa Clara is terrible. Have you seen the pictures? It's like because of the fires. Yeah, I mean it's really bad. Even we're having fires here in LA, and it's the fires are like 40 miles away, and the smoke just comes into and you're still smelling it. So it wouldn't surprise me if that game was postponed, but if not, Kyler Murray last year put up averaged about 25 FanDuel points in two meetings against the Niners. So he provides that rushing floor, and they could get into a shootout early in the year. That's the one guy I like. The other guy I like is Tyrod Taylor. He's facing the Bengals, who gave up the most rushing yards to quarterbacks last year. So they're missing one of their top defensive players, defensive linemen. Also, they will not be there for the Bengals. So I like those two guys for decent. Everybody else, I think you could throw GBP with Rodgers or Garoppolo or Stafford, but I'm trying to keep my player pool down as small as possible. I don't mind Wentz too. You mentioned a pass funnel defense. Wentz is going to have that good matchup against the Skins or Washington, whoever we call them. And they are a system that was there last year, like we talked about. So any other quarterbacks you want to talk about? Looks pretty good.
No, that covers it. Let me ask you a question, though. The bad air quality thing, say they do play it, but it's still like, it's there. It's just not bad enough to cancel. Would that have any impact on, like, breathing, conditioning? Would guys get tired early or anything? Do you have any clue?
Well, Tevin Coleman already said that if the air quality doesn't improve, that he might not play. So then that would definitely open up Mostert to a bigger share of the line of the carries than anything. But I don't know. I think it would affect your lungs eventually. I think you might have to a little bit, but I think if the air quality is okay to play, they're going to play.
Sure. Okay.
Let's move on to running backs. Running back, the big question I think this week going into this is Miles Sanders. On FanDuel, he would probably have been a core play if he was still if he was 100% healthy, 6,800. We would love it, but he's not. So to me, I feel like another polarizing topic is going to be the chalk price of one Antonio Gibson of the Washington football team, who is 4K on DK. And we don't know what he's going to be doing, what his role is. We've been hearing that he's going to be doing X, Y, and Z. He's had like 33 carries in his whole career, and that's college. He's a rookie, and he's 4K, but yet people are talking about how he's one of the most chalkiest plays on the slate and how he's going to be in cash games. I mean, I just can't. You say that out loud, rookie, first start, and he's not even number one on the depth chart, and he's going to be chalk. I don't know. I just don't feel like you're hoping for 11 points at the most, 10, and he doesn't kill you. But he could get you 0, and it could be all a ruse because he's a rookie and we don't know. Before you get into the other running backs, what's your thought on Antonio Gibson this week? Because I'm hearing a lot of things in the industry. Everybody are going after him because he's so cheap.
I have absolutely no interest in the guy at all. Like, I love that he's projected to be popular. I don't like taking running backs against Philly at all. I expect him to be trailing. Even if he is the, pass game running back, what's, 6, 7 catches, like 50, 60 yards. Like, maybe he scores decent, but I think we're going to have running backs score into the 30s, double, triple, whatever his score is. And the point per dollar is not going to be strong enough. You know what I mean? There's a lot of running backs that are 2,000 more that I think outscore him by way more than 15 points. And it's great to me. I will have 0. Like, there are guys, close in price to him, like, a Paulie D favorite, Tariq Cohen, for 900 more, who's likely to be the, lead back, who was third in targets for all running backs last year and should get the lead carries. What's name's out? Like, I'd much rather that for 900 more. There's a slew of guys that are close enough in price that, interest me more. So, none of that for me. I'm blown away by him being popular. I think it's, guys love, running backs that are cheap, that open up. But to me, this is not the spot at all.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I can't buy a rookie in his first start. I just can't do it. I mean, especially in a cash game. You know me, Paul. I'm not going to do it. If I was going to go for a rookie or a guy down in that range, I'm going for Zach Moss. He's the guy that's going to be getting the goal line carries with the Bills, it's going to be a low scoring game. They're going to run the ball. The Bills ran the ball 45 times in 2 games against the Jets last year for 202 yards. Devin Singletary's not going to get those carries. He's been fumbling. That's all he needs. To me, I feel like Moss is going to be more of the feature back. He's 4,400 on FanDuel, 4,400 on DK, and 4,700 on FanDuel. So I feel like he is if I'm going to play a rookie down there, it's going to be Zach Moss.
Mm-hmm.
He has more of a role, more of a defined role and such. But
there's plenty of them. Even just on the same team, like, no one has any interest in J.D. McKissick, the guy that's supposedly number 1 on the depth chart, has, some NFL experience. Like,
Bryce Love.
I mean, I'm not really into that either, but just weird to me that the guy that's 1 on the depth chart has no interest in, Gibson does. I mean, I get why, but,
It's the shiny new toy. It's because he's multi-talented, athletic, freak athlete like Tyreek Hill and those guys that can do it all, that they think, well, that's going to win me the slate, when it really doesn't win you shit. But you know what? If Antonio Gibson goes off, then great. You know what? We missed out. I'm okay with that. I think we will be fine. To me, I feel like running back this week is all about paying up. And not, you might not, we'll talk about this. Like, I don't feel like you have to go all the way up to McCaffrey. You can. I feel like we talked about the value. You probably would have to fit in a guy like Moss or Gibson or somebody down there if you wanted to do CMC with a high price receiver or something like that. I personally don't. I'm not really into that. My guys that I'm looking at is like the sweet spot is like I got Dalvin Cook, Josh Jacobs, and Austin Eckler. Those are my three guys that I'm really looking at. We got Josh Jacobs is going up against the team with the worst defensive line, gave up the most rushing yards to anybody, the Carolina Panthers. So they lost Gerald McCoy, Dontari Poe, and Luke Kuechly, and they had the worst rushing defense last year, and they lost all those guys. So that's how bad they are. And I feel like out of all those games, I like Jacobs at 8,200, and we got Cook at 8,700, a little bit more expensive, but he ran all over the Packers last year. I feel like they're going to want to control that game, be it grind it out, not get into a shootout. They're at home. It feels like it's very easy. And then Eckler, we saw what he did the first 4 weeks without Gordon last year. He was like running back 2. So I don't like the fact that the Chargers have 3 linemen that are one of them are out, Pouncey, and 2 of them are questionable. So I would have totally liked it a little bit more, but because we have that he kind of goes below the other 2, and where I might have to come off of Jacobs or Cook to where I would go down to Eckler. But those are my 3 guys up top that I'm really into. I don't mind Mixon also, but those are my guys up top. What about you, Paulie?
First off, I think it's just a smash spot for McCaffrey. I will have a bunch of him. I'll find ways to do it. I think there's plenty of decent upside value plays on the slate, and more seem to be opening up as we get closer. So just hard for me to envision him not doing well, especially on DraftKings, where the guy had 116 catches. It was like 6th amongst receivers, on top of the carries, the goal line work, now he's got a check down quarterback who's more likely to depend on him. It just, against the Raiders' poor defense, hard to see him in a game with like a 48 total not having, a big chunk of the scoring for Carolina. So I will have quite a bit of him. Love Austin Eckler. I know CK's big on him. He was, almost had 100 receptions as a running back last year in like somewhat of a split outside of like early in the year, and then now Melvin Gordon's gone. The carries should increase. The quarterback changed. This game, they should be playing from ahead. And if they're not, even better, because then we get more pass game. But, 108 targets last year, almost 1,000 yards receiving, fairly priced, not going to be too popular. Love Austin Eckler against the Bengals defense that was not good, got ran all over, got thrown all over. And, Mike Williams, even if he does play, going to be limited, dealing with the injury. Why would they rush him back? And, a new check down quarterback, just love Austin Eckler. Probably going to be one of my higher owned players on the entire slate. Who else do I like up here? I'm not as into Dalvin Cook. I have respect for the Chiefs defense, and I just
Packers.
Packers defense. Sorry, and kind of expect that to be a lower scoring game. In my opinion, I think both teams are going to run it quite a bit. The clock should be moving. Decent defenses. But I wouldn't talk you off of the Dalvin Cook. I'm just not as interested. I get Josh Jacobs. I think I'm trying to find reasons not to play him because he's going to be so popular. But, the guy was awesome last year, and
let me stop you right there, Paulie. See, I think on DK he's fadeable. He doesn't catch passes.
Mm-hmm.
You pay $200 more and get Eckler or CMC, like you said, and that's where you go to war. I think on FanDuel, Jacobs is more playable than Eckler because Jacobs will be more rushing. He'll have more carries, and Eckler's will get more catches. You see, it's about they both probably have just about as good chance to get in the end zone, in my opinion, between the two of them. So I feel like on FanDuel, Jacobs is more of a play. Eckler's more of a play on DK.
Mm-hmm.
Just because of the full point PPR and such.
Sure, but I mean, if he runs for 140 and 2 touchdowns, you're going to want him on both sites, regardless. And
You're right.
you
You're right.
Kuechly out, how bad that defense was. The here's the home. Like, you got to have some of him in case that game flow goes that way. We saw how much they fed him last year. Like, if Gruden's got a 7-10 point lead, like he's just going to hand it off and try and drain out that clock and get out of there with a win. So. I think you got to have some, but I agree. If I played equal on both sites, I'd have more of him on FanDuel because of the lack of pass games.
Mm-hmm.
And then Joe Mixon, I think he's kind of game flow proof. They'll give him carries. They'll throw to him if they're trailing. They'll throw to him more. Rookie quarterback against a good pass rush, a lot of check down, and just too much volume, in my opinion. At his price, I do like that quite a bit. Those are kind of my favorites up, above like 6K, I guess.
All right, some guys in the mids here. I'm just gonna say you can just be like yes or no, if you want to expand on it. But like, are you to me? I'm fading Sanders. I don't want to even jump into that. I'm not gonna dive into that. I'm totally off of Sanders. I just don't. I don't know what the workload's going to be. If anything, it could be split with that. Nick Chubb.
Miles Sanders, I'll say I'll be under the field, but I'll have some.
Okay. What about Nick Chubb? He did run good against Cleveland last year. I think that he would be an ultimate GPP play. 5%. Nobody's going to have under 5%.
Yeah, under 5. I'm not that interested. I probably don't build enough teams to get a ton of him, if any.
Mm-hmm.
Just to me, it's so unlikely that they're leading, and hard for me to see him getting those 20-22 carries. Like, I just think that Ravens offense is so explosive. They're gonna get the lead at home, and I'm more into the Cleveland pass game in the trailing role, but. Nick Chubb is one of the best running backs in the game, one of the most explosive, and he can go off at any time against anyone. So I wouldn't talk you off of it at all, but I think we'd both agree like low exposures to him this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the vice president of Nick Chubb fan club, so. I think next week's the week that Chubb blows up, but I'm tuning in this week. Okay, so is there any other rookie that you're going to be rolling with? Are you going to be going with Jonathan Taylor? That is to me, I feel like everybody's thinking. Here's how everybody feels the Colts Jags game is going to go. Is that the Colts are going to get up big, and then it's going to be the JT show in the second half, and he's going to go for like 250 yards, and everybody's going to forget about CEH. I don't think that's going to happen. I would hope that would happen, but I feel like it's going to be more 50-50 split. I feel like Marlon Mack is a decent play just because he's the starter. He's going to get some carries, and people are going to go to Taylor because they want Taylor to be the starter. But Mac is just as good a play, in my opinion. And being DK, they're almost the same price. Same thing on FanDuel. Are you going to have any of that game at all? Because they have the best offensive line, and they're facing one of the worst defensive lines. So we want to share that maybe if we pick it right.
So if I had to choose, I think I'd be more inclined to play Mac. I think he's going to get the first batch of carries, and like if he's doing well, why wouldn't they just continue to go with him and ease in Taylor? Like, he's been really good for them. For 2 or 3 seasons when he's healthy. He's healthy right now. Like you said, very, very good plus matchup. I won't have a ton by any means, but if I had to choose, I'd be more likely to go with Mac because, like, I think he gets first crack at most things. Like first goal line carry will most likely be him over Taylor, and especially like late in the game, if they're securing a win, I think he's more reliable and they'll be more likely to let him close out the game, and Taylor will be more of like an experimental, see what he can do on a couple of scripted plays to him, get the ball in his hands. But I don't think Taylor gets enough of the workload to be live, where Mac could get 20 carries, 100 and change, and 1 or 2 touchdowns. So I'm not too into that situation, although it's plus because of the unknown. But I'd have a couple shares of Mac if I had to make that call.
Mm-hmm. All right. Any more running backs you really want to talk about? I'm pretty much good. Like I said, I'm trying to pay up. I don't really want to go much value because unless something really, really opens up. I mean, if they were to rule out Miles Sanders on Saturday night, not Boston Scott, obviously, if something like that were to happen, obviously that totally changes things. Do you have any interest in James Robinson of the Jags?
No, I don't. But I would be more likely to play him than the Redskins guy. I'll say that.
Gibson, yeah, because he's going to get at least 10, 15 carries. Yep. I know
you're not really that much on DraftKings, and this is significantly more DraftKings thing. But do you like the Tariq Cohen idea? If what's that scrub's name is out, the
Montgomery. He practiced in full the last 2 days. That doesn't mean he's going to have a full workload. But if you like that game, be a little bit more, of up and down thing, I think Cohen would be just fine.
Okay, it's only if dude is out though. If he's in and going to be starting, then it's a moot point.
Guys, I see your questions in the chat here. We will get to them after we finish all the position by position. So just save them. We will definitely get to them, guys. All right. So I'm going to move on to receiver. We talked about this a little bit in the pre-show. On FanDuel, the price difference between Michael Thomas and Davante Adams is $800. I think that Davante Adams has a better matchup, but Michael Thomas might get more of the targets and such. And it might be more of an up and down game. It might be more of a high scoring game and this and that. I think Michael Thomas is more of a play on FanDuel, but on DK, Davante Adams is the play of the receivers up top. I also think Chris Godwin is the only other receiver up top that I would be considering in a cash game setting. And Julio Jones is probably one of the best GPP options on the slate. Everybody is talking about Calvin Ridley, which I will get to them. He's more of a mid-tier option, and he's a great play. But when everybody's talking about, how Hurst is in a good matchup, and everybody's talking about Ridley, one of these years, Julio Jones is going to have the year that everybody's been talking about. So I think that when it comes to GBP plays, Julio's the guy because people are just going to look at Thomas and Adams, fully discount Julio, who's in just as good a spot, who can do just as much as any of those guys. Of those guys up top, Paul, who do you like? Those are who I like. I'm not going to have a lot of them, I don't think. I think it's going to be more of a pay down. I might try and get one of them in there, but it's going to be tough.
I do think that's a good point on Julio. He's going to be one of the lowest owned star receivers. And, I don't care who's the matchup. He's one of the best receivers in the game and should definitely have more ownership than he's going to get. And I like the way you're thinking there. First things first is like what to do with Michael Thomas. Hard for me to see him not making value and probably exceeding it a little bit. 9K, 4X is 36. I think he gets around there, right? He's going to get 10 or more catches. We'll see how close the game is, but, we don't know how healthy, how, well Emmanuel Sanders is going to do in that offense. He's the guy, and Tampa Bay has improved on the front end. They're going to be they were great against the run anyway, and they're going to be even better. they could be leading this game, and just more for Michael Thomas. I feel like he's one of the safer guys in terms of like ceiling, like where or floor, like I think he's going to get minimum of 25 and more than likely between 30 and 40. So I do like it, but you got to make sacrifices to get him. And it seems like his ownership's lower than I kind of expected. It seems like guys are going to be paying up at tight ends, making sure to get McCaffrey and paying up at quarterback, and he's going to be lower than expected. So similar to what you said about Julio, Thomas is kind of going to be lower than he should be, and he's just so reliable at home. I plan to get over the field on him, even though I'm spending significantly more than the rest of like the higher tier. Devontae Adams, as we said, I think pre-show, he's got the number one receiver cornerback matchup. They could be trailing, or it could just be a close, lower scoring game where he should get 10 catches. If he can get into the end zone once or more, that'd be great. And seems like a really, really solid play. But receiver is so deep that it's hard for me to get married to any of these spend ups, because I think there's a ton in the mid tier that could, out point per dollar the expensive guys. Now we learn Evans is doubtful. That's going to make Chris Godwin, significantly more attractive. I get it. But I think I'm going to be aiming more and more towards the mid tier so that I can get more McCaffrey, get a good quarterback. And, there's a ton in this mid tier that I've got my eye on. Thielen's also another guy that a lot of people are talking about. I get it. I'm fine with him. I wouldn't talk you off, but I, would lean more towards Thomas, Julio, Adams, Godwin over Adam Thielen, but he's fine just as well. The mid tier is really where I think the discussion gets interesting.
Yeah, I mean on FanDuel, Thielen is not even with the big boys, so he's much more like affordable on FanDuel than he is on DK. He's an easy fade. I think he's a fade on FanDuel. Anyways, the mid tier, literally, like you said, it is so juicy. It's almost it's gonna be tough to get it completely right. And if you do, you're probably gonna win some money. I mean, you could just go down the list. I mean, Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett, Calvin Ridley, Stephon Diggs, Terry McLaurin, my boy, my man crush this year, DK Metcalf, Marvin Jones, especially with Galladay out. And then, week one darling last year, Deshaun Jackson and Marquise Brown. And then the Bill killer himself, Jamison Crowder, who had like 200 yards with, 20 targets last year. I mean, he just raped them. I mean, there's so much to go with, and it's awesome, and I love it. And I think that you can go a lot of ways. I feel like Crowder is a great play on DK. On FanDuel, he's fine too. Marquise Brown is more of a FanDuel play. You got to look for him to go big deep, but I think he's more of a GPP play. Stephon Diggs is facing Pierre Desir, who's one of the worst corners in the league. So, and then I think, DK Metcalf, I've had a man crush on him all year. He is blowing up. We saw him become a man in the playoff game against the Eagles last year. He's facing, I think his name is Isaiah Oliver or such, and it's just terrible. So, I mean, it's almost like pick your poison with those guys. I love Ridley. I love DK. It's almost tough. McLaurin is another facing Darius Slay, who's going to be shadowing him, but he went for 5 for 72 on 12 targets. So don't worry about that. I'm not worried about Slay at all. And, I don't know what else. I don't really know. I mean, somebody else said Emmanuel Sanders, too, is in a great spot. And John Brown, who had a great rapport with Allen last year. So what do you like of all those guys I saw? Is there an order? Is there,
I would say that DK Metcalf is one of my favorites. Unfortunately, that's no secret. He's going to be probably one of the top 5 highest owned receivers at this price tag. Just everything he said, he became a man. He really took over the number one role there. He loved picking on the Atlanta pass game, and I think he's a top 5 receiver. Overall this season. Um, this game and many more will set up very good for him. To that point, it has made me more interested in Tyler Lockett as well. Just seeing the likely ownership gap where I'm seeing, Metcalf probably 18 to 20% owned and Lockett more closer to like 5 to 6. I like the idea of putting them both in a lineup and, just heavily stacking that game. But he's probably my favorite in this mid tier. But there's a ton, like you mentioned. T.Y. Hilton is kind of interesting to me too. Healthy, finally a quarterback who can get receivers the ball. Terrible defense on turf. Like, just actually, is Jacksonville turf?
No,
not on turf. Which I do prefer him on turf, but he's just when he's healthy, he's a problem. He's very cheap. That game's got a super high total. I think he's going to be like 3% owned. He's interesting. As I mentioned, I really like Jarvis Landry. I like Stephon Diggs quite a bit. Like Buffalo, the last 2 years has taken their ex number one receiver, and he's been the guy that they target. He gets 10 plus targets almost every game. Like John Brown was one of the more reliable receivers last year, and Diggs is now stepping into that role. I think there's Buffalo is really growing on me. We got the high upside rushing quarterback with the big arm with 2 awesome receivers against beat ups Jets defense that lost its best player and a team looking to make a statement. So Stephon Diggs at 2% paired up with Josh Allen. I'm really, really starting to like that. Doesn't matter which site. What else do we have? I'll talk about that in value. Keenan Allen. What do you think about him against Cincinnati? I know we all love Eckler, but do you like Keenan Allen at all?
Oh yeah. There's no Mike Williams this week.
Mm-hmm. He's already, or you just
he's out.
No, okay.
So there's no Mike Williams. He's going to be in the slot. They're going to move him around. The guy, the guy in the Chargers, more of a dart throw. If you're building a lot of lineups, the guy that if you wanted to throw one out there is his name is Jalen Guyton, and he's going to be matched up against Darius Phillips. The guy is just a burner. So if you wanted to throw a dart throw on something like Jalen Guyton of the Chargers, Demir Bird is another dart throw tomorrow on Sunday of things. Let's move down to the value. We have some good value rookie receivers this weekend. Bryan Edwards starting for the Raiders. Tyrell Williams is out. He's going to be facing Dante Jackson of the Panthers. The Panthers have a terrible secondary. Henry Ruggs, he's going to be facing Rasul Douglas. Who do you prefer between the two, between Edwards or Ruggs?
Probably Ruggs. He strikes me as like Robbie Anderson, Marquise Brown, super fast home run hitter. So you always want to attack the ceilings if possible. And he's the number one, but I like both. The one guy that's not really talked about is Hunter Renfrow in that offense, who I also have interest in. Probably if I had to rank the Raiders, it'd be Ruggs, Renfrow, Edwards in that order. Renfrow really kind of came on in the second half of the season, seemed to have a good thing going with Carr, and he's got to have the best knowledge of the playbook, the best report the quarterback. I like him as well in that situation.
Mm-hmm. One guy I think I want to move just back up into the mid. One guy, DJ Chark. I think.
Yes. Glad you brought that up. Could be trailing. Guy was awesome last year. if the Colts have a weakness, it's probably like defending the deep pass or middle of the field kind of pass. Everything kind of lines up. I like that a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't mention, guys, Marvin Jones. Yes, I love Marvin Jones. With Galladay being out, Marvin Jones becomes a cash play. He's going to be getting a lot of targets. Are you in the DJax for DJax on Sunday? Are you into that?
Not anywhere near as much as the rest of the industry. He's fine. You know what I mean? But like to me, oh sorry, dude. He is like identical to like a Harry Ruggs kind of play to me, where it's a lot of narrative driven. It's like everyone's like, oh, it's revenge. He's gonna go off, and they'll take shots to him, and maybe it does work out. But like, do you see him getting 10 targets?
Well, I mean, everybody literally is going off of the game last year where he went 9 for 154 and 2 touchdowns. They're
Right.
just assuming because it's the same team, the same week, everything, it's the same player, it's a revenge game, it's obviously going to happen again. It's almost, to say that, to do that just because is not the right way, is not the way to do it. To me, let me ask you this on FanDuel. Deshaun Jackson or Emmanuel Sanders?
Probably Jackson, because I think he's more likely to get the
touchdown. Yeah. Okay. I mean, because they're $100 apart. I just think he's just going to be crazy popular just because of everything that happened last year. Jalen Reagor being full at practice, though, muddles things a little bit,
Yep.
And so, like, I still feel like it's a good play. It just kind of caps it a little bit. It kind of like, like I understand it now. But I feel like there's other receivers that are right around the same price that could score just as much as him or more. And he could be a bust too. Oh, and by the way, he's probably the most injury prone person in the NFL. So he could last a quarter also, guys, just to let you know that. I mean, everybody's got to be prepared for the soft tissue injuries that are going to happen in the next couple of weeks because of the pulled hammies and this and that, and not playing and that. Anybody else a receiver you want to talk about, Paul, or can we move to tight end?
Yes. Yeah, there's a couple guys down here. Steven Sims, Redskins, 4-7. All right. The last 4 games of the year last year, dude had 8, 10, 11, and 7 targets, 4 touchdowns, 81, 64, 45, 40 yards receiving. Everyone's going to McLaurin. No one's going to touch this guy. Like triple stacking it with McLaurin, playing him instead for the savings. He's one of my favorite value receivers on the slate. Love picking on the Philly secondary. And those numbers, like, really jumped off the screen to me, how much they used him, how, a big part of that offense he is. Justin Watson, Tampa Bay, like, all I heard about was how he's like the Edelman and Tom Brady and him are developing such a great thing. Now you get Evans ruled out. He's 3-8. He certainly becomes a lot more interesting with Tom Brady and, how much he likes hitting that slot and how much we like picking on the Saints slot defenders. So that has become really interesting to me. Who else? Mentioned Hunter Renfro. There's more. There's 1 or 2 more I want to talk about. The Daniel Bird thing I do like. If you are playing Cam Newton, like, he makes a lot of sense on DraftKings. Doesn't need a ton at his price, and he has that familiarity. Like, they went and got him for Cam, somebody that he's comfortable with. The guy's fast as shit. I could see him getting a handful of short passes and maybe sneaking one into the house. N'Keal Harry, another Patriot, like 4'4", big 6'4", talented guy, and now he's got a quarterback that can hit him on the deep ball, so that could be a sneaky blow up game where he gets 2 touchdowns, a bunch of yards. Cam Newton, if that whole Cam Newton narrative does kind of play out, and I guess that's it for now. But Watson and Steven Sims Jr. I like quite a bit right now as value receivers.
Yeah, I don't mind it. I feel like they're more of good in the stacks and stuff like that. I'm totally with it. I think this, to me, it's the value receivers on FanDuel. It's going to be one of those Raider receivers down there, and just pretty much that's just how it's going to work. But I don't know if you really got to go that low. Let's move on to tight end. To me, it's like everybody's going to look at. There's going to be no Kelsey. They're going to see George Kittle going up against the Arizona Cardinals, who me and you could have scored a touchdown playing tight end against them last year. But they also drafted in the first round Isaiah Simmons out of Clemson, who is Derwin James-esque talent-wise, in my opinion. And I feel like they're going to be better at covering the tight end. And at $8K on FanDuel with all the other good options, is Kittle – do we need Kittle on Sunday?
I don't think so. He only had 4 touchdowns last year. He only had 2 games over 3 games over 20 DraftKings points. Too expensive. A ton of better options for cheaper, and now you add the poor air and the fact that San Francisco really likes to run the ball. If they're ahead, they're just going to keep running. Hard for me to see him having this super high ceiling, no one's close to him kind of game where you needed him. I don't know if I'll have any Kittle.
Mm-hmm. I just think that there's other options this week at tight end that are in just good spots.
And cheaper. What's the difference between him and Zach Ertz?
I don't think that there's much difference. I think Ertz is in almost a better spot. I wish Rager was out. He would have gotten more targets. But for cash game purposes, I'm looking for just a decent floor. I'm not looking for anything slate breaking. The guy that I think's been very polarizing is Hayden Hurst. People see what the Seahawks did last year against a tight end, but then they signed Jamal Adams and such, so they think that they're going to be better against the tight ends. Do you have any? Do you like Hurst on Sunday?
Sure, he's fine.
Maybe in a stack for that game.
Definitely in a stack. He's all right, but he's too close, in my opinion, to guys I like more for cheaper, and I'm just not going to choose him. Or for $1,500 more, you get to Zach Ertz, you get to Darren Waller, Mark Andrews, guys that I think are way more reliable, higher ceiling. Hayden Hurst. I mean, Austin Hooper had a great season, great role on that team last year. He's been there for a while. They haven't practiced a ton. What grasp of the playbook does he have? How does he get 100% of the pass game snaps? We don't know this. They've got talent at receiver. They don't need to get in the ball a ton. He could do fine, but similar to Kittle, it's super hard for me to envision him even in the top 3 point per dollar or separating himself from the other value plays by that much. So if he's going to be that popular, it's just an easy walk away. It's such a deep position for me.
The 2 guys I think I like at tight end, and they're pretty much priced the same on FanDuel. One of them is pretty much vanilla. Jack Doyle, 5,300, going up against Jacksonville. We all know Philip Rivers likes tight ends. Feel like he's very floor. He's not gonna kill you, but he's not gonna win you any slate. But the guy priced right next to him, I feel like is a great pivot, or even he could be just as safe. Is T.J. Hawkinson with Holiday out? Yes. It's Hawkinson it's gonna be Hawkinson and Marvin Jones are gonna get the targets on Sunday, I believe, because the other guy is some guy named Cephas or something. So
I mean, Hawkinson's best game as a pro was week 1 last season. That doesn't mean anything, but Like, we've seen what his ceiling is, and now you take Galladay out, who didn't miss any last year. Stafford was on a roll till he got hurt. Their, run game does not look very good right now. Like, they could be trailing. Hawkinson should get 10 plus targets, and have a chance for 100 plus yards. Super talented guy at his price. He's the best value receiver, tight end, in my opinion now, and not even close. And with what I want to do with the other positions in terms of spending up, like, I think I'm going to end up with a lot of him. The other cheap value tight end that I'm seeing, like, sites projecting to be popular, is Herndon from the Jets. You have any interest there?
Yeah, I think I do. He's, people think he's a freak. I think he's a good GPP play. They just feel like Darnold is just going to pepper him with targets, and when he's healthy, he's really good, and it's basically going to be Crowder and Herndon in the pass game. But the Bills are pretty good against the tight end, so I wouldn't. Maybe not this week.
He's 3-3 on DraftKings.
Yeah, I think also a good pivot in GPPs is Goddard. Everybody's going to be going to Ertz, going to Dallas Goddard on the same, cheaper, just as much touchdown upside with less. The thing about Kittle is that there is no, like, Debo. There's not very many other receivers there. So you feel like he's going to get the targets. I just feel like for $8K, I'm going to get Devontae Adams or Michael Thomas. I'm not going to get Kittle because I just don't think that he can outproduce them on Sunday.
He had one game over 10 targets last year, and they didn't have many receivers last year either. Debo didn't emerge till late in the year. Like, that's a run-first offense. And I don't know. Like, high ownership, high price. You play him, then you're sacrificing something too good at another position. I'm just not interested at all.
Mm-hmm. Any more tight ends you want to talk about?
Let me see.
I'm off of
Mark Andrews, right? The guy who had the most touchdowns for tight ends last year. Not much competition for, receptions and targets. Gonna have the biggest market share of the red zone pass game. Sure, you could have some regression of how high percentage he was in terms of touchdowns, but that offense is so good, and it's just him and Marquise Brown. He's like the possession receiver on this offense. 6 catches, 80 yards minimum, right? And big time upside. He had 2 touchdowns, 93 yards in the second game against the Browns last year, and 1 touchdown and 31 yards and 4 catches. So 3 touchdowns in 2 games against Cleveland. If not for Zach Ertz and Hawkinson, he'd probably be my favorite tight end this week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't mind him at all. He was, man, I had him on my seasonal teams last year. He was so dependable and reliable.
I just mentioned Darren Waller, freakish talent, another year, not much competition in terms of experienced receivers in that offense. Could be trailing. Hunter Henry, we already talked about Mike Williams being out. You talked about a guy no one's ever heard of that's listening to the show or ever. What was his name? AJ Guyton?
Mm-hmm. Jerry Guyton, yeah.
Like, Hunter Henry's clearly the number 2. Decent price at 5.3. And then Jared Cook, right? Like, we don't know who's going to be the number 2 mouth to feed in that New Orleans pass game. I should say number 3. I guess Kamara's number 2. But Jared Cook had, I think, 3 touchdowns in 2 games against Tampa last year. Had a couple, blow-up games, as he seems to do every year on turf. He could be the guy with just not many other mouths to feed in the pass game, and another guy that nobody's going to have any ownership to that I don't mind, especially in stacks.
Mm-hmm. All right, all right. What about Gronk? I don't think you need him. I'm not into him.
That's a good point, though. Not Gronk, but OJ, right? Supposedly looking great in practice. He's 3'7", and he's out Mike Evans. He's very, very, very interesting to me as well.
Yeah, it would be totally so trolling of him to score like 2 touchdowns after he was like the chalk tight end last year that everybody loved going into the season, All right, let's move on to defenses. We got to move along. I'm going to make it easy. Me, on FanDuel, there's not very many I like. To me, the defense that I'm going to be playing the most, and almost in all of the lineups, it's the Colts. They're 3,700. They're on the road. I realize that, but they're playing Jacksonville. They're probably the worst team in the NFL. Other teams I like: Chargers, Patriots, let's see, I wrote it down: Chargers, Patriots, Bills, and DK Washington, because they're $2,000, and I think that they're a better defense than the $2,000 defense, especially with Chase Young. Maybe get a couple sacks at 2K. That's just way too cheap, in my opinion.
Definitely. For sure, I'm going to be paying down at defense. I think there's just too many cheap that have, just as good a chance as any to be the highest scoring D. Nothing worse than when an expensive defense breaks the slate and goes for 25. But the Chargers are 2-8, one of my favorites. The Jets at 2-1 against Buffalo. Like, Josh Allen was a turnover machine last year. Rookies, young kids running the ball. One guy's already having fumble issues. They're 2-1, 100 off the minimum. Don't mind that. Who else? What's Philly's price? The Eagle? Nope, not doing that at 3.6. It's going to be spend down city for me. The Colts at 3K is probably the highest I would go. The Lions at 2.7 were actually sneakily a very good fantasy scoring defense last year, and Trubisky's a disaster. The Saints are 2-4 against Tampa. Don't love it, but they're better than that price tag. The Vikings are 2-5. They've definitely lost a few guys off that defense. Don't think it'll be just as good as last year, but 2-5 for a team that gets to the quarterback, I don't mind. But agree with what you said about Washington at min price, and we'll predominantly have the Chargers and the Colts. And what's Buffalo's price? Buffalo's pricey, but I do like that. So predominantly going to have the Lions and the Chargers and Washington.
Yeah, to me it's the Colts. FanDuel, it's just so nice price, 3,700. There's really nobody else that you would, if you go any lower, it's just not that tempting. Any higher, yeah, the Chargers are 4,200. That's $500 more. I think you're going to need that $500, to be honest with you. So let's move on, Paulie, to our next segment. We're moving along. We're almost going to be done with this. Believe it or not, we got to our main. The position by position, guys, is the main section. What we're going to do now is, Paulie, we're going to talk about 2 games that we're just going to stack. I'm going to talk about the first game I'm going to talk about, and then you're going to talk about a game. Game I'm going to talk about that I like stacking the most is going to be the Seattle-Atlanta game. It's going to, you could go with either Russ or Matt Ryan, and then obviously you could throw DK Metcalf is the guy that I like the most. Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, and Tyler Lockett. Those are the 4 guys. Hayden Hurst is another guy you could play. The running game, I think, if you wanted to get a little different with Gurley, you could, because nobody's going to have him and there's nobody else, and he could fall into the end zone twice and make value. And, you get that. And also he catches a couple passes out of the backfield too. I would probably pair him with Russ if you were doing that. I wouldn't pair him with Matt Ryan. But yeah, that game is my favorite game. I like the Carolina and Oakland game. I'll be having some of that too. Paulie, talk about the game you like.
Redskins with Haskins, Sims, and McLaurin bringing back something from the Eagles, most likely Ertz. Love that, just the cheapness of it that allows me to get McCaffrey and 2 more studs into that lineup. And then the Bills, the low ownership, high upside, matchup, all that good stuff. Looking to make a statement with Diggs, Brown, or one of the running backs. But Allen and Diggs for sure. And that it might just be those two, and then run it back with Herndon for cheap or Crowder from the Jets. I like quite a bit as well.
Yeah. All right. Is there any game that the public's on that you're going to be lower on? To me, I feel like the New Orleans Tampa game, I'm going to be a little bit lighter than most people just because I want to see that Tampa offense. And now no Mike Evans. I mean, I might throw in Godwin in there or something like that, but I'm not really going to do like a full game stack with that. Is there any game that you're going to kind of be off of that obviously the public's on?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think there's any that the public's very heavy on that I'll be off of, but the Gibson play is the thing I'll be off of the most, and then probably Kittle.
All right, let's move on to our core plays now. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to be giving you 2 core plays from FanDuel, and then Paul's going to be giving you 2 core plays from DK. Both those plays will show up in my cash game article. There will also be 2 other plays on top of that for each site specific. So they might overlap and stuff sometimes, but I'm not sure about this week. So we're just going to kind of talk about it. On FanDuel, my first core play that I just love from all week is I'm locking in the Colts defense at 3,700. I want that value there. That is going to be my first core play. My second core play is going to be Josh Jacobs of the Raiders. I just feel like he's going to get the carries. That's going to be a closer game, and he's going to be scoring a touchdown and such. And at 8,200, you could either fit in Cook, McCaffrey up top if you really wanted to, or you could stay also with either a guy like Eckler or Mixon with one of the receivers. So to me, starting off, Josh Jacobs and the Colts defense, lock it in. Paulie, tell me your 2 DK core plays.
I'm going to go Austin Eckler. Just price, matchup, role, combination for DraftKings, the pass game involvement, the likelihood of him being involved in the scoring. And DK Metcalf at this point. I just really expect that to be a shootout, and think he gets 10 plus targets, gets in the end zone. Love his price, and like you, I'm really just all in on Metcalf this year, and think he's going to do a great start at that price on DraftKings. I'm going to have a ton.
Yeah, I mean, he might kind of work his way into my core lineup, but you'll have to check that out when the article comes out tomorrow afternoon. So move on. I'm just going to show you. We're going to be wrapping it up. I'm going to be answering your questions here in a little bit. Paulie D, I got a couple prop bets for you. All right, just real quick. I'm just getting into prop bets a little bit, just dipping my waters in. I'm going to throw you out a couple. Tell me what you like. Derek Carr over under 267.5 yards.
Under.
I like it. Let's see here. Christian McCaffrey over 73.5 rushing yards.
Over.
Yeah, that's a good over. Yeah, they even have Jacobs at 78.5. That just seems too low. I don't see that. That just seems way too low.
think McCaffrey
Let's
has
see.
run longer than that in this game, just on one carry.
Yeah. Ridley over under 61.5 receiving yards.
Ooh. I'll say under.
Wow. Okay, so you're almost going with the Ridley fade in some one on that. You
Well,
really got in the end zone then.
I mean, exactly. I think he's capable of having like 5 for 55 and 2 or 1 touchdown and being a solid play. But, like you mentioned, it's still Julio's offense. They, do run the ball quite a bit. I wouldn't be shocked to see, Gurley vulture some end zone, some touchdowns. And they got Hurst and a handful of other guys that they like to mix in there. Like, I'm not seeing him in this game particularly.
All right, and here's a good one. Jamison Crowder over under 58.5 yards.
Over.
That's what I think too. All right. Now it's week 1. Who's your survivor pick, Paulie?
Good.
It's a different week. It's a weird week. I'm gonna put this down so we can't pick them again. Okay. I'm gonna keep a marker. We can't pick them again, even if we lose. You still can't pick them again. So. You can go first. Or do you want me to go first? Did I lose Paulie? Did I lose him? Oh, look at it froze. All right. I'm going to go. My survivor picks this week is going to be the Buffalo Bills at home against the Jets. I feel like I might not use them the rest of the year. So I'm just going to use them this game at home against the Jets. Lock in the Buffalo Bills as my survivor picks. I'm waiting for Paulie to get back. I'm going to answer some of these questions going down in the chat here. Let's see here. Let me see. Oh, you're back. Paulie's back. You're back. Paulie, give me your survivor pick.
Survivor. Let's see. Colts.
All right, that's a good. Yeah, it was to me. It was between the Colts or the Bills. I picked the Bills. I don't know if you heard that. They would be. So I'm going to put you down. Paulie's got the Colts week 1. I feel like I'm going to use the Colts. I'm going to save them. They'll play Jacksonville again at home later on in the year, so I might use that again. Anyways, we got some questions going on, and then we're going to get on out of here, guys. First question. By the way, Steve Samso likes that Haskins at 5K is the nuts. He thinks that Fitzpatrick's going to beat the Dolphins. Are going to win over the Patriots. And then we have a question. Wig, I kind of answered it. Do you think the rookies are going to get a lot of work like Clyde Edwards-Helaire? I said that was a good situation last night. It was a good game script. We shouldn't be expecting something like this, but there will be some rookies that will be good. We named some: Edwards, Ruggs, JT. I think on Monday night, Jerry Jeudy, because Cortland Sutton is hurt, I think Jeudy might show up. People are talking about CeeDee Lamb. Is there any other rookies you think might have a good role this week?
I would just say more so receivers than running backs for DFS purposes. I like most of the ones you mentioned.
Zach Moss, I think he's going to be good too.
Yeah, I do like Zach Moss. Yeah, I would say like Ruggs or Edwards probably has the highest ceiling right now, but again, receivers than running backs in week 1 for rookies.
Mm-hmm. All right, this is from an OG Wise Take member, D. Millie. He says he's all in on Rivers and Hilton with Chark comeback. Do you think you need to get another player, another Colt or a Jag like Chris Thompson or Paris Campbell?
Well, hard to envision the Colts needing to pass enough to where Rivers goes for like 350 and 4 touchdowns, with Jacksonville wanting to lose and the Colts being such a solid team. So I would say more Jacksonville than Colts if you want to add another guy. I'd probably aim for Jacksonville.
Yeah, and then it would probably be Thompson because he's the guy they're gonna be throwing to and such. Le'Veon Bell for FanDuel, I say no. I don't think you ever need to play Le'Veon Bell this year.
Definitely not FanDuel. He'd probably be more of a DraftKings thing where maybe he gets enough pass game work to be viable, but not so much for me this week. Like I need to see his role improved in that offense, and really, like they, strike me as like a spread them out, throw the ball when they're coming from behind, not really dump off to him. And it just seems like that coach does not like him. But I would not say never, but more so DraftKings, not on FanDuel, and probably not week 1.
All right, we got another question. This is more of just a basic, kind of like EV negative, just strategy question. D. Millie says he hates playing running backs from the same game. Is it a negative EV to play running back from the same game? Example, CMC and Jacobs in nutty spots.
I would agree. Like
in most situations, yes, but I feel like that situation, it could work because Jacobs could be running the clock out. CMC's trying to come back.
On DraftKings, yeah. Like, it's negative EV for the most part. Nothing's 100%. Like, there's going to be tons of times two running backs, especially as they become more involved in the pass game. But, like, for that to work out, I think the Raiders have to be leading. Otherwise, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I get it. All right. It looks like that's it, man. We got through all of it. It seems like it only took us an hour and 20 minutes. I bet you we'll shave that off too. We'll get that better too. So anything else to leave us with, Paulie?
No, I mean, we'll see how this narrows. I think a lot's going to change as we get closer to lock. The San Fran game could fall off. I was really caught off guard with the Evans and Galladay news today, and I wouldn't be shocked if we get a handful more of those type of announcements that really kind of turn the slate on its ass. And you got to be flexible and be paying attention all the way up until lock, as news kind of comes out in this COVID universe that we live in now. But articles will be out. I'll be updating mine all the way up to lock, and check them out for our final takes and more, the picks that we're going to be the heaviest on. We talked about a shit ton today. My article will be a lot more direct.
Yeah. Be sure to do that. We have one last thing. Take with Gronk. With Evans doubtful, Gronk will be on the field. What do you think will happen? I think he could catch, 2 for 40 and a touchdown. He's going to be on the field in good situations. I don't think he's going to be like a slate breaking play and stuff like that. I guess it could happen, but I think Gronk will be just fine, but his floor will be just around what the other guys are. So that being said, I will not have any Logan Thomas. All right. That being said, guys, be sure to hit the like button. It helps it. And be sure to subscribe to wisetake.com. Promo code NFL20 to get a discount. Remember, you'll be having all the content coming out tomorrow. I'll be having more of my core 4 for FanDuel and the core for DK. So you'll be able to help you with your lineups for cash games and for low-level tournaments and single-entry tournaments. So for Paulie D, I'm Patio Joe. And as our man, Stay K, stays in the back, good luck.